Osionicod, Wade Blevins, Dawadon, Galele, Jacket, or Kohig, Tosco, Nakine, Jalagia de lo Quaste. So, welcome everybody. My name is Wade Blevins, and you are watching Cherokee 3 here at RSU TV. I'm very happy that I'm able to be here today. Today is our 24th Cherokee lesson. So we've got a lot to do today. So come, okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our reading selection today, again, we are taking a very simple nursery rhyme, and we're just getting practice reading in Cherokee, because the more we do it, the better we get at it. It's just like literacy in English. The more you read in English, the better you become at reading in English. The more we read in Cherokee, the better we become at reading in Cherokee. So, and I really find that to be true, even for myself, because I've been forcing myself here at Cherokee 3. We're not using any phonetics, right? And so, and I notice that because I'm not using that kind of crutch of phonetics, that my fluency in reading is becoming better, because as we know, not all the sounds are voiced in certain words, and sometimes the sounds change, right? So, let's go ahead and we will read our way through this little nursery rhyme. It's super, super easy. Hopefully you are finding some of these words beneficial, which is why we chose this, because it's got a lot of vocabulary in it that are everyday items, everyday animals, and fairly, well, I'm not going to say they're fairly common verbs, but some of them are. And some of them are just words that are probably important to know. So let's go ahead and we will read our way through fairly quickly until we get to the new information, then we'll take our time. So you can do it one of two ways. Like I said, this is our reading selection for the day. So I recommend that you just try to follow along and read with me as we go through it. Try to recognize the syllabary characters and read them with me as I do it. I'll go fairly slow. So let's go ahead and come, Idalena. Okay. Higoli yet. Go, G squawk. Tl ya dun ne G squaya Gal jati ale gatlid ak tana G squago G la ga go huh yo hu san ya dun ne ki dg tole dak tana ji go ha yo hu san ga go gi ga ni ya ya da ne ja ti sti nawed ak tana giga akini ya ga go sti go sti ya da ne doka ast ale yug ak tanna. Utlandstig. Gotlandsgestig. Okay. I think maybe it would be more correct if this was doctana, ost alejag doctana, because we're talking about more than one item. So we're talking about a needle and thread. We're talking about more than one thing. So to me, that should be ost alejag doctana. Okay, but again, a lot of times in spoken Cherokee, sometimes, they don't worry about it so much. So, but to me, but either way, a speaker knows what you're talking about. Octana, using it, right? Okay, new one. Oh, okay. Ga, go. Gani sa skåskest ja dene gu ku kodest octana gaskåskest ganisa. Okay, so there's some really good words in here. Gago, you already know. Who? Ganisa, ganisa, that's a grave. Ganisa, it's a grave. Okay, askåskest is going to dig it. Askåskest, askåskest. So you can see in here, this is a great word for that s sound, because we have askåskesti, askåskest. Okay, so gago, ganisa, askåskest, ja. Udane, gu, ku. Now, again, in written Cherokee, we have gu and ku, but we use the same syllabary character for both. So it's only through being aware of the word do we automatically know what it should be. Ugu, ku, ugu, ku. And that's the word, of course, for this guy right here, an owl. We will talk about owls in just a second, so after we get through this, okay? So, kodest, a shovel or a spade. Kodest, and again, this is go, but godest doesn't make any sense. Kodest is a shovel or a spade. Octana, using a shovel. Gaskåskest, ganisa, okay? Gaskåskest, I'm going to dig. Ganisa, I'm going to dig the grave, okay? So this says, who's going to dig the grave? I, said the owl. With my little spade, I'm going to dig the grave, all right? So, real quickly, we have this word ugu, ku. It's a word that is a word from the sound that the owl makes, right? Ugu, ku, right? If you listen to that, it sounds like an owl, just like, skole gualan is a whippoorwill, because skole gualan is the sound that it makes in gu que, it's a quail. And again, it's the sound that the bird makes. And we do that in English as well. as well. For example, the word whippoorwill. The word whippoorwill is what it sounds like to speakers of English. So that's why they call it whippoorwill, because it sounds like that bird is saying that. And the same with not the word quail, but the word bob white, because if you hear that goo quay, bob white, see, it sounds like it's saying Bob White, right? So uguku is one of our words for an owl. We have a couple other words. We have the word wahoo, and then we also have the word skili for a screech owl. And there's not a consensus from community to community as to, which one is uguk and which one is wahoo. Some people say uguk is a horned owl and wahoo is, a barred owl, or and then some people say, no, that's not right. Some people say, well, uguku is a barn owl and wahoo is a horn owl. But just be aware that there are 3 different words for owl, and at one time each of those meant a certain kind of owl, but over time and in the different communities, they've come to mean different things. And so there's no one consensus on what each of those refers to. Let's talk culturally a little bit about owls. There are some Cherokee people who do not really care to have owls around their home because, in their family they say that, when owls come, they're bringing bad messages, or sometimes they mean that, they're especially screech owls, of course, screech owls, because of the sound that they make, I think we're a little terrifying, but we have a lot of beliefs about those owls and about those things. Some families are more strict about them than others, and some are not. I know when I was a kid growing up, we didn't have owl feathers in our house, and that kind of thing. My grandma wouldn't allow us to keep, pictures of owls or things like that, but not all people are like that. Not all families are like that. So just be aware that you'll come across, our tribe is very, very big, and so you'll come across a wide gamut of beliefs concerning owls and how strict they are. And then, of course, the word kodest, that's a shovel or a spade. People, the Cherokee families with the last name Spade, this is their last name, kodest, okay? So let's read through this one more time. It says, Ga go, ga ni saha, asko skest, aya, udane uguku. Kodest aktana, gasko skest, ganisa. Okay. Next one. Gago al jadon ski gesesti. Aya udane Kog. Juhaget go whale octana. Jil jadon ski. Gesesti. Okay, this is a great one. This is a great paragraph. So, Gago. Who? Al jadon ski. Okay. So when you came across that word, probably for some of you, that ski at the end automatically tipped you off that we're talking about somebody who does something, right? We're talking about a profession. Here, ski is a preacher. Ski, okay? Gesesti will be. So who will be the preacher? Gago ski gesesti. Ya, me, utane said Kog, the crow. Okay? I think in the original version it says a rook, but a rook and a crow are, I believe, the same thing. And then this says Juhaged go whale. Juhaged is like heavy, go whale, book, and that's the word for the Bible. Aktana, using Juhaged go whale. So using the Bible, Jiljadohaski, I'm the preacher, Gesesti, will be. I, the preacher, will be. Say, so this G, you see here, all, Jil, Jado, G means I, okay? So if you changed it to he, heal, Jado you, okay? So Jil Jado I'm the preacher. Gesesti will be. Okay, so let's read through this again. Gago al Jado gesesti. Aya utane kog. Juhaged go whale octana. Jil Jado gesesti. Okay, so that's this one right here. Okay, let's go ahead and so that's our reading selection. Hopefully it's getting easier for you. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. It's hard for me. And it's hard for speakers as well. It's difficult for speakers. For one thing, the syllabary system is not 100% hard and fast rules. For example, the word gu, ku, that gu character can make a gu sound or a ku sound depending on, the word or where it sits in the word, right? And the same with, for example, that al-jadohaski, it's spelled ali jadohaski. But most people, they don't say that. They say just al-jadohaski. Okay? So, or al-jadohask is perfectly fine. So, we have to learn, and the only way we learn is by exposing ourselves to those words. And we don't have a standardized spelling, so sometimes a word will be spelled differently than how it sounds to you, and that'll completely throw you off. And trust me, I understand. But the only way we can get better at it is just to do it more often, is just to do it, right? The more we do it, the more we just automatically can kind of intuit is like, oh, well, that sound should probably be dropped off. That maybe should be, said a different way, that kind of thing. And we just learn as we go. So keep with it. If you're struggling, don't worry about it. Just keep going. Keep working on it. Take it little bit by little bit, Hopefully by this time you're past just the stage of reading the individual characters, okay? Because that's like learning the ABCs in English, okay? We can learn the ABCs, but our next step is we have to start using them in words, right? And so, and it does take time. I think I'm just now at the point where some words that I'm very familiar with, that I see a lot in written Cherokee, I don't necessarily read every single character in there. I just know it's like, oh, well, that's Gog or that's ga go. I don't really see it as, you know, the characters ga and go. I see the two characters together as meaning ga go, or gog, or uda ne, uda ne. Okay, I can kind of read those now. So you will get better at it because I find myself getting better, and I know if I can do it, you guys can do it. You know, you're probably much smarter than I am, and you know, much more capable than I am. So I have every confidence that with a little bit of work and just relax about it. You know, it's not the end of the world. Just take what you can do, and you know, don't stress out about the rest of it. Just let it come. Okay. All right. So we're talking about Tojuwa Sequanid, who of course is a very influential person in among our people, both Cherokee Nation and United Kituwa Band people. And we're learning a little bit about him. And so today we're going to learn just a couple of paragraphs about his parents. So we'll back up, we'll review, and then we'll move forward. So, all right. So this says, Hioligis hia askaya ayetli chikatog. Okay. Hiolig negesanyik Redbird Smith du don e. Tojuwa Sequanid du don e Zalagika de. Sita ojali helika hiina julsked askaya. Okay. Sagu iagayul chanel skohitsku higskohi udene Tojuwa Sequanid. Kochik guye goni sonela du sine ojali heli gon udetiiska. Tleskino do yoganto do udetiiska. Okay. Tojuwa Sequanid udetiiska inustan. Ani kituwagi ani yowiya gatiyo anego. Okay. So that's as far as we got last time. Let's continue on. Okay. Gadoke. Oh, no, we learned this one too. Gadoke Tojuwa Sequanid ulskejik. Ulskejik. Or ulskejiki. Either way. Okay. Gadoke Tojuwa Sequanid ulskejiki. Okay. Tojuwa udod. Tojuwa udod. Pig Smith du don e. Sequanid Jalagiganti du don e. Only Smith ani yoneg du no e. Se Gotlan na erski Gotlan na erski Jagase Usti. Okay, all right, okay, now I see what's going on. Okay, let's read our way through it. Okay, Tojuwa udod Pig Smith du don e. Tojuwa udod Pig Smith do, don't I? Okay. To Ju Hua. Of course, that's Redbird. U Dode, his father. U Dode, his father. Pig Smith do, don't I? His Pig Smith was his name. Okay. Sequanid, Jalagika de do, don't I? Hopefully that makes complete sense to you. So Sequanid, Jalagika de, or Jalaka de, do, don't I? His name in Cherokee was Sequanid, which of course means young pig. Okay? Okay, this one's kind of an interesting one, and we will talk about this for just a second. Oni Smith ani yoneg do no eh. Okay, so we've got some things going on here. Oni means the last or the final. Okay, Smith ani yoneg. In white people, right? Do no eh. He was named, okay? So we know the word do don't eh, right? Do no eh is similar, except it's kind of passive, okay? So it's not, it was his name, there's like they named him, okay? Do no eh. Okay, do no eh, they named him. In English, gave him the last name, Smith. Oni, the last. Okay. Some communities use this word, oni, okay, to mean their last name. There's another word for last name, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it's woot, and I don't know what it means. I don't know, where the etymology of it comes from, but if I remember correctly, I've heard that used before to talk about somebody's family name, woot, or their surname or their last name, woot. However, for this translation by Miss Peggy, and where she comes from in her family, and in there they just say oni, the last one, okay, and that's perfectly fine. That's what we say in English, right? Last name, oni, okay, oni Smith ani yoneg do no eh, okay. So they, in English, they gave him the last name Smith. Ase go turn na ski, okay. Jage sa yusti. Okay, so ase. In this case, usually ase means but in this case we'd say maybe because. Go turn ski. That's the word for a blacksmith, okay? Literally, it means, hopefully, that word go turn, you recognize that as the word for butter. And if you've heard Peggy and I talking about the word for butter, it just means it was made, right? Go turn, okay? Go turn ski. So somebody that makes things, all right, a maker. And that's our word for a blacksmith. It's just, it doesn't really have anything with the fire or with iron or anything like that. It just says he makes things, right? Go turn ski. So that's our word for a blacksmith. And I find that kind of funny because now in today's, kind of hipster culture, a craft worker or somebody, who makes things, they call them a maker, right? And, I'm in my maker's studio or that kind of thing. So go ski. I find that kind of funny that in today's language, that word maker is kind of having a comeback, and in Cherokee that's our word for a blacksmith. Okay, Tike se yusti. So that Tike se that was yusti like. Okay, yusti means like. So so that last sentence says, but he was a blacksmith. Okay, he was like a blacksmith. Okay, and that's why they called him Smith. So let's read through this again together. So to chuhwa udod pig smith do don si quanid jalagika di do don only Smith ani yoneg do no say gotlan ski to se yusti. Okay, so let's read through it again one more time, a little bit faster. Read through with me. Try to follow along if you can. To chu hua udod pig Smith do don si quanid talagika di do don only Smith ani yoneg do no se gotlan ski to se yusti. Okay, so so that's a little bit about his father. Before we go on to talk about his mother, I want to talk about, you'll notice that his father's name was Sequanid, and Redbird Smith, his Cherokee name was Tojuwa Sequanid. Okay, and this was during his time, during his the time that he was living. This was how people differentiated, because there were a lot of people with the name, for example, Tojuwa. So, you know, it's like, well, how do you differentiate between this Tojuwa here, that Tojuwa over there, you know? And so what they did was their first name would be their Cherokee name, and then their last name, they would take whatever the first name of their father was. So because Tojuwa's father's name was Sequanid, Tojuwa became Tojuwa Sequanid, okay? And then so on and so on and so on. And I think, again, this is kind of interesting because this is something that was done in Europe. You know, if you see, you know, last names with S-O-N at the end, you know, like Fogelson or you know, Nordson, you know, Henderson, you know, those kinds of Johnson, right? Let's do Johnson because that's a really easy one to kind of understand. So, you know, and so really what that means is, you know, like if we took the name Tom Johnson, okay? Really what that meant back in long time ago Europe is Tom, the son of John, literally. And so this is kind of the same thing here. You know, they would take their Cherokee name, and then they would take the Cherokee name of their father, and they would carry that forward. I don't, my own personal belief, my own personal thought is that this was probably not something that was done prior to the 1800s, that this was probably a fairly new development among our people, just because it was patrilineal, which is not really kind of traditional for us, you know, because our clans come from our mothers, and that's our most important tie as a Cherokee person, is to our mother and to our mother's clan and to our mother's family. So my personal thought, or my personal belief, is that probably this was something that was adopted probably from Europeans, just because we needed some way of differentiating between, 20 people that were all named Tojuwa. And it was like, well, which one are we talking about? It's like, well, the one whose father was named Sequanid, and then Tojuwa Sequanid, So, and I don't really know how it was done with women. I don't think that in the documents that I've seen from that period, Cherokee women just had one name, and that was, their name. They just had, Will, and we'll talk about his mother and her Cherokee name in a minute. So, all right. So, Tojuwa udod pigsmith do don't Sequanid jalagigante do don't Only Smith ani yoneg do no say atlana uski jage say yusti. All right. Tojuwa uji. Let's read through this. I'll go slower. Tojuwa uji. Lizzie Hildebrand do don't Ijula ajalaki ale aduchi gese. Jalagi uweti. Lizzie udod. Oh, I didn't put that in syllabary. That's weird. Okay, Lizzie udod distoski dalastane, huh? Dulastane, huh? That should be do, I think. Dulastane, huh? Okay, so Tojuwa uji, his mother. Tojuwa's mother, Lizzie Hildebrand, do don't Jalagikante, Lisi, do don't Lisi, do don't Jalagikante. Yonegi ganti, Lizzie Hildebrand, do don't Aseno nole, Jalagikante, Lisi, do don't Ijul, Achalaki, Ale Aduchi, Gesen. Okay, Ijul atalaki ale aduchi gese. Okay, Ijul both, atalaki Cherokee, ale and aduchi German or Dutch. And you can hear that Dutchy, and you can, of course, probably comes from the German word for themselves, Deutsch, right? But in Cherokee, it can refer to either German or Dutch. Gaysaint was. So she was both Cherokee and German, or Cherokee and Dutch. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we're going to talk about it in English. Chalagi uweti, in the old Cherokee homeland, Lizzie udod, Lizzie's father, distoski, Dulostane. He worked as a distoski, a miller, somebody who grinds. Ostoski, where the mill, and that's the word for a mill, like a grinding mill. Ostoski. Okay. Distoski, he grinds them, right? So he was a miller. Okay, so let's see how close we are to the English. So it says Redbird Smith's mother was Lizzie Hildebrand. She was both Cherokee and German. Lizzie's father worked as a miller in the old homeland. Okay, so let's read through it again in Cherokee, and then we're going to talk about this and kind of where this comes from, and I'm going to give you a kind of a caveat about this. So, Tojuwa uji, Lizzie Hildebrand do don't Ijul ajalaki ale ate chike se. Jalagi uweti, Lizzie udod di stoski dulastane, huh? Okay. So, about Lizzie Hildebrand and her past. In trying to find her Cherokee name, it was a little difficult, and I do want to say a thank you to David Cornsilk for kind of helping me. In the applications for enrollment, or the applications for an allotment, one of their children listed Lizzie's Cherokee name as Lisi, okay, which of course is just Lizzie, Cherokeeified, right? Lisi, okay, that was her Cherokee name, according to her child, okay? Now, Ijul Achalaki Ale Ade Chike Saint. She was both Cherokee and German, or Pennsylvania Dutch. There are a couple of stories about this. There was a very famous Hildebrand by the name of John Hildebrand, who was Pennsylvania Dutch, and he was a miller. He was hired by the American government to go to Cherokee country and start a mill. In their efforts to civilize the Cherokee people. They were like, well, if we give them mills, if we give them spinning wheels, if we give them, that kind of industry, then they'll become just like us. And so this man by the name of John Hildebrand was sent by the American government. He was paid to go down and start a mill. He married, he was a widower. He had been married before. He'd been married to a Yoneg lady. And they had like 5 kids, I think, 4 or 5. And one of the names was Elizabeth, but of course she wasn't any native. However, when he moved down, supposedly he married a woman by the name of Susanna Galcatcher, or woman holder. And according to the story, and then they had children. It's unclear whether Lizzie Hildebrand was a part of that family or not. According to a man by the name of Robert Thomas, in his dissertation, Origin and Development of Redbird Smith Movement, which he wrote in 1953, in this, he interviewed the surviving children of Redbird Smith and Lucy Fields. And in that document, he says that Lizzie, her father was of German descent, but his last name was Skrimschner. And that's what it says in there. So I don't know. Although in Emmett Starr's, like if you read, if you do genealogy and you do research and those kinds of things, most references to his mother just refer back to Emmett Starr's and what he wrote, and what he wrote is she came from the finest Cherokee bloodlines. So, but it is believed that his mother, at least, was not full-blood Cherokee. She was, now, back in those days, you were Cherokee if you had a Cherokee mother, which meant you had a clan, and of course she was a traditionalist, as was her husband, and so because of that they were considered to be full-blood Cherokee. So who knows, right? So that's all to be said is that, even though I wrote this on here, the main reason why I kind of chose this avenue of thought is so that we could have the word adechi as a vocabulary word for the word for German or Dutch. Okay, but just be aware that that this is not the be-all, end-all. This is not the final word on who his ancestors were. The different sources say different things, and I cannot tell you with certainty that yes, this absolutely was for a fact who her people were, or what whether she was full blood or whether she was mixed, or so just be aware. All right, so let's read it through one more time. With all of that, let's go ahead and read it, just as an exercise for language. So, Tojuhua Uji Lizzie Hildebrand Du Don Ijul Achalaki Ale Adeji Gesen Chalaki Uweti Lizzie Udod Di Stoski Du Lestane Huh. Okay. So, all right. So we just have just a couple more minutes, and before we go, I do want to just mention that there is another famous Hildebrand who back here in Indian Territory, who was a miller. They had the what they would call the Old Beck Mill, which was actually started by the Hildebrands. I believe it's located in the Saline district, and of course that was the famous shootout, where Polly Beck Hildebrand, where she was killed and shot, and all of that, and so those of you who know some of the history, between Ned Christie and Zeke Proctor and those kinds of things, you'll recognize the Old Beck Mill and the Hildebrands, and whether these, I find it an interesting maybe coincidence that there was a John Hildebrand who had a mill back in Chalaki, and then here in Oklahoma, or Indian Territory, there was also a Hildebrand who still had a mill. And so I would definitely be interested to know if it was the same Hildebrand family who carried that forward, that was kind of their family business. And so whenever they moved here from the Trail of Tears, they just started back up another mill. So I think that that's kind of cool. Anyway, so my job between now and then will be to do a little more digging and a little more research, and come back to you with hopefully some more answers. So from all of us here at RSU TV and Cherokee Nation, I do want to say wadon. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you've found some things that were interesting for you. Some of it, as far as the factual information, you may agree with, you may not agree with, and that's okay. But our main focus is language, and hopefully at least in that you have some information. So from all of us here, I just want to say wadon and don dago.